So welcome back to another episode of Beating Alpha. Today's very special episode that I'm very happy to have this guest on today's show. And this is episode 123. And the guest is Darren Jacklin. So background of his, I mean, there's going to be some impressive things here that we'll cover in the bio. And of course, half of that stuff probably we're going to discuss probably even more in the interview. So for over 25 years, Darren has traveled 4 continents and personally trained and developed over 1 million people in over 50 countries. So that's quite an achievement. Darren Jacklin currently sits on paid international boards of directors and advisory boards of public and private companies. And with this experience has successfully advised a small private American residential real estate company to grow to an internationally recognized publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, has ranked the closing bell on NASDAQ in the New York City twice. Again, amazing. Co-founder of a private family foundation called LY2NK Foundation, and has committed to raising $100 million by 2030 for global philanthropy projects. And of course, for more information, you can go to his website, which is darrenjacklin.com, or to go and become part of the foundation by going to the ly2nk.org, which of course those links and for the social media is going to be down below. So Darren, I want to say a big thank you today for being on the show.
I'm grateful to be here and make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I love the fact this man, before we started, he just got me going. It was like, this man is coming from a point of service and he's just looking to provide all this value today. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you have a wealth of knowledge that you carry with you. So I think sharing that today a little bit with the audience, it will be very beneficial. So again, maybe kind of go back to the point, 25 years, 4 continents, trained over 1 million people in 50 countries. So how do you go, how do you go about doing that?
Sure.
And where do you start your journey? I mean,
yeah.
how did you come across that?
Just to give some context for your global listeners, I'll give a little bit about my backstory just to relate to people. I grew up in a middle-income family in a city in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm a Canadian citizen. And the city I grew up in had less than 20,000 people in population. And, I failed grade 1 of public school, and I was misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability. So I was put into special education classes from grade 1 to grade 12 of public school. And so I never went to regular school like most kids do. I was in special education. And so, no self-esteem, no self-confidence, very insecure as a child. And so by the time I was 7 years of age, I created my first company called Rent-A-Kid. And I would go out and cut grass. I would shovel snow in the wintertime here in Canada and deliver a newspaper 6 days a week in my neighborhood. By the time I was 9 years.
Sorry, what's the name again? Rent-A-Kid?
Yeah, it's called Rent-A-Kid. And so I would go out and put on telephone poles. I would go put in these little posters, and I would have the secretary at my elementary school. She would photocopy these little posters, and I'd go step up on all these telephone poles all throughout my neighborhood with my phone number. Just kind of like, you go.
And I don't think, sorry for interrupting, I don't think this strategy will work in these days, probably, because I think the police will get involved for that these days.
Yeah, times have changed, right? And, I was a kid who didn't do well in academia, didn't do well in the public school system. And so I guess you could say I was very entrepreneurial at a very young age, even though I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. And so I went through elementary school, struggled through junior high school, graduated from high school. And after I barely passed grade 12 of public education, with the help of my friends in school to get me through, I actually did multiple suicide attempts to end my life in my late teenage years. I had no direction. I had no focus. I had no purpose. I had no self-confidence. Most importantly, I was completely out of integrity in my life. I had no workability and integrity. I was never my word. I was not reliable. You couldn't count on me. I would say I'd be this time and I would be late and I wouldn't make it up. I wouldn't restore my integrity. And what really built my self-confidence was learning to keep my personal promises to myself internally. And I really discovered that, people look at me today and they go, my gosh, you have such high self-confidence, high self-worth. How do you do that? I said, start to monitor where you're in and out of integrity, because without integrity, nothing works. Mm-hmm. And integrity is who we're being, not what we're doing, but who we're being. And so I struggled with self-confidence, and I struggled with, attempting suicides. My last attempt, by driving my car at 140 kilometers an hour or 85 miles an hour towards a telephone pole, I had a car I was driving to premeditate suicide. I stopped the car. I couldn't hit the telephone pole with my car. I drove into the city where I was living, and I went to a nonprofit organization that dealt with crisis line prevention. It was a crisis line where if you're in trouble, you have suicide thoughts, or you're depressed, or you went through a relationship breakup, or a job loss, or financial pressures, wherever you're dealing with in your life, you call this telephone number, and they have trained volunteer counselors on the phone. And I drove to this nonprofit organization, and I turned myself in. And they ended up volunteering, working with me, counseling me. And then a lady introduced me to a Dale Carnegie training program back in the early 1990s. Some of you may recall a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And that book, Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, drastically changed my life. And then I started to take the training development of the Dale Carnegie training programs. And Dale Carnegie had passed on many years ago, but left a legacy training development programs, workshops, and seminars. So I took those programs back in the early 1990s. Then through Dale Carnegie training, got introduced to Toastmasters International. And that's where I started to change my environment, because our environments are stronger than our willpower. And so I started to get around different like-minded, positive people, not realizing that who I was as a human being was starting to change because my environment around me was changing. And I had a lady one day named Sue Urquhart in my Toastmasters group. She believed in me more than I believed in myself. I had no direction, I had no focus. I was in these programs because I was struggling with my life, with my identity, who I was as a man, my self-worth, my self-confidence, my finances, everything was out of whack. Everything was just not working for me in my life. I had no workability. And this lady said one day, she says, I think that we could mentor and coach and train, develop Darren Jacklin to become a world-class speaker. It was back in the early 1990s. So I was terrified. So I went and got a job as a telemarketer. We used to telemarket, to sell things over the phone. And I was working for a large magazine here in Canada, selling magazine subscriptions. Anyways, within 7 months, I became the #1 telemarketer in Canada, making 400 cold calls a day. And after 7 months, my supervisor came to me and said, Darren, you can't go any further in this organization. I suggest you leave and go on your own and become a full-time entrepreneur. So I left from there, and in June of 1995, started making cold calls, 400 cold calls a day. And between 1995 and the year 2000, made over 100,000 cold calls out of the telephone books, the white pages, the yellow pages of phone books, calling, soliciting business from A to Z in the telephone books for corporate training services. And that was the start. I have mass amounts of rejection, no formal education, but a desire and a hunger to want to train and develop people and how to grow and scale and build companies. And so from 1995 to the year 2015, I traveled the world multiple times, 50 countries, 157 Fortune 500 companies. I personally trained, developed, and over 1 million people. And then from there, that branched off into, paid boards of directors work now, and advisory board, and helping to grow and scale companies, building a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio that I have now. And then leading into philanthropy, which we're building the Private Family Foundation now for global philanthropy projects. So we can unpack lots of things, and I can share with you mistakes and adversities and challenges, but also best practices of what my daily habits and daily routines are, of what I do during the waking hours of my day. So feel free to ask away, and I'll contribute and provide value.
I mean, my brain just runs like, 10,000 miles an hour because I have all these different questions that I wanted to ask you right now. But again, just coming from the point where you have all these suicidal thoughts and, to kind of becoming the best version of yourself, because you have to become a best version of yourself. If you want to help other people, you kind of, you have to lift yourself up a little bit to some sort of, different level. So you have to kind of help yourself. But that's what I wanted to ask you. How do you help yourself? Because there's a lot of people who are uncertain and confused and lost right now. And maybe they're having similar, hopefully not, different maybe thoughts about themselves and where they are currently. So how do you find the strength, the will, and whatever the pieces? Like, what did you find in yourself that kind of gave you that passion and the pursuit to follow, the path that you
Great question. So I journal every day in a journal. That works for me as a tool. What I found from my experience, and I can only come from my experience, is, I struggled with a learning disability and a reading disability at a very young age. And so when I realized that I could read, I struggled. Like I'd meet different mentors and different coaches and different people in public, and they'd say, leaders are readers, you got to read. And I had the belief system and the tape running in my mind saying, well, you're stupid, you're not good enough, you're special education, who are you? Because I had that mind chatter in my head. And so I sat down with a guy one time. I met him through a Rotary International Club, and I met him through Toastmasters through Rotary. And he said to me, he said, Darren, if you just commit to reading 10 pages a day, just 10 pages a day of a good book that will elevate your life. You pick the subject matter, but choose 10 pages a day because here's the thing. He said, Darren, can you read 10 pages a day? And I said, yeah. He said, can you not read 10 pages a day? I said, yeah. He goes, so would you agree with me, Darren, it's easy to read 10 pages a day? I said, yeah. He goes, Darren, would you agree with me that it's easy not to read 10 pages a day? I said, yeah. He goes, that's the difference. You see, it's easy to read 10 pages a day. It's easy not to read 10 pages a day. It's easy to do 10 push-ups a day. It's easy to not do 10 push-ups a day. It's easy to drink, a liter or a gallon of water a day, and it's easy not to. And that's the difference with high performance men and women. It's easy to do and it's easy not to do. It's a fine line. And so he said, if you just commit to reading 10 pages a day of a good book that will elevate your life personally or professionally, compound that over 365 days, that's 3,650 pages, which is equivalent to 12 to 15 books a year, cover to cover in a calendar year. And that just blew my mindset. It's like, wow, if I just can, because here's the thing, you might read 10 pages today and tomorrow you might read 14, the next day you might read 10 and 27, but compounded over 365 days, you run the numbers, it's going to compound. And over, you start in January, by the time you get to September, October, you're going to start to see that compounding effect really start to happen. And so the key thing is somebody listening or watching us right today can start reading 10 pages. It's easy to do and easy not to do. And what I really learned in my life, people ask me all the time, they go, how do you do all the stuff that you do all around the world? Here's the key thing. If it is not in your calendar, it does not exist in your life. I have people all the time, I consult, I coach, I advise people all the time. And when I'm on a virtual call with them, like on Zoom, and people say, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Or I got a gentleman this morning, he said to me, he said, Darren, I need to make more money in my business. Like we need to, we had some cash reserves. We got to make our payroll on time and stuff. And I said, great. I said, how much time as a business owner do you spend on revenue generating activities or income producing activities in your business? He goes, oh, I'm doing it all the time. I said, great, let's take a look. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, do you use a calendar? He goes, yeah, I use a Google Calendar. I said, great. Would you mind sharing your screen and bringing up your calendar? And he goes, well, I feel a little bit, it's very private. And I said, that's okay. I'm not going to judge you. I just want to take a look. Right. And so he pops up his calendar in the next 7 days. There was not one time block schedule in his calendar that was in existence that showed him he was doing income producing or revenue generating activities. That's what people don't realize. If you're not related to your calendar, if you're not intimate to your calendar. So if you want to do date nights, you want to work out at a gym, you want to travel, you want to go spend time with people, whatever you value most in your life, if it's not in your calendar with reminders, it doesn't exist in your life. One of the things that I do to stay present is I have an iPhone. And I have each morning, I have a global calendar that I work with different time zones around the planet. And I have reminders that pop up on my laptop or desktop computer and my mobile phone. But I also on my iPhone, in the alarm, I have audible and vibrational alarms that go off. So I can be fully present in a meeting or fully present in my tasks, and I'm focused. And I'm not saying, oh gosh, well, I got to go to a meeting in 10 minutes. I'm not worrying about the clock because I've got reminders that will vibrationally or audibly let me know that I need to transition and pivot to the next meeting. So I purposely, intentionally prepare in advance. Also, what I do is every Sunday as a non-negotiable habit, I sit down and what I look at is I project and forecast the next week from Sunday to Saturday. Everything's going to happen. And then what I do with my team is I actually have a weekly report. This is all the things that are going to happen for me. These are my tasks lists of what I'm accountable and responsible for this week. I actually write it down, but each task that I write down, I also have a contingency plan in terms of what breakdowns can possibly occur. So if I have back-to-back meetings, they're all virtual meetings, for example, okay? One meeting might run 5 or 10 minutes over time. Well, that puts me out of integrity. And people say, what do you mean puts you out of integrity? Well, if I showed up to this call right now with you 10 minutes late and I come on and it's like no big deal, in the back of your mind, you might be saying, well, this guy's unreliable. He's not trustworthy. He's not a person of his word, right? You see,
he's just busy.
Yeah, but we're all busy human beings. The thing is, we're not present to the impact that we have in other human beings' lives of who we're being, right? And that's what I've really discovered in my life is that, what's the impact when I don't show up on time to another person I'm going to meet? Am I reliable? Am I consistent? Am I trustworthy? Will they do business with me? Because there's 3 types of money. There's calm money, there's cautious money, and there's nervous money. And I invite your listeners watching or listening today, just try this on in your life. over the next 72 hours, if you're online or you're out in public, you're at a market, you're at a shopping center, you're at a grocery store, just notice your financial behavior habits. When you go to buy something, when you transact something, you're buying or selling something, just check in with yourself as self-awareness. Are you calm? Are you cautious? Or are you nervous? Vibrationally, energetically, you'll notice it's a muscle you developed. And I always share that with people is that, so when people are going to do business with you, are they calm? Are they cautious? Or are they nervous? And it's self-awareness. And what I encourage people to do is part of self-awareness, go through self-evaluation. Self-evaluation is where you go to maybe the top 25 contacts you got in your mobile phone. You send them a text message or an email, or you phone call them and you say, listen, I just want to get some feedback from you, some honest feedback. Would you do business with me? Would you buy my product or my service? For those people that are in business watching this call, would you buy my product or service? And just be honest with me, yes or no? Okay, great. If the answer is no, why is that? Are you calm? Are you cautious? Are you nervous around being around me? And this is all part of self-evaluation. And guess what? You're going to be uncomfortable. This is scary doing this, but this is where the growth is in human beings, right? Everything I do every day is out of my comfort zone. I'm out of my comfort zone every day of my life, right? So the thing is that for most people, it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta get related to my calendar. I got to put things into existence in my calendar. Yes, if you want to live an extraordinary life and really level up and skill up. Because the key thing is, if you keep doing the same habits, your daily habits and your daily routines, it will, the next quarter, the next 6 months, next year will be this pretty well the same as you are right now. You got to go look at what do you do during the waking hours of your day? I'll give you some examples if you don't mind.
Sure.
These are my personal promises. So these are, so we're in the year 2020 right now. So these are my top 10 personal promises for my life. I don't call them goals. I don't call them dreams. I don't call them targets. They're my personal promises. What do I give my word to? What do I personally promise to myself for this calendar year? So I have my top 10 personal promises. I write these out in my journal every single day. Non-negotiable. Why? Consistency, repetition, affirmations, reinforcement. So most people, when I'm traveling on an airplane, or I'm at a conference or a convention, or I'm in an airport, or I'm having conversations with people, I ask people, I said, what is your personal promises this year? With your health, with your family, with your finances, with your work, with your children, with your well-being, with your spiritual life, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, right? Family. And most people, I don't know. 9 out of 10 people have no idea. So today is an action step, as a bold request. I want you to write down, what is it that you really, really, really want in your life? Because here's something to consider. As human beings, all we are is a network of conversations. We're just these human beings running around in meat suits on this beautiful planet. But all we are is a network of conversations. Anything you and I want in our lives is going to come from strangers. But we're taught as children, because of our environments, don't talk to strangers. Because of this global pandemic called COVID-19 right now, we're taught social distance. We're taught self-isolation. Distance yourself from people. Hide behind laptop and desktop computers. Don't connect. Don't build relationship equity with other human beings. The challenge is that all we are is a network of conversations. You see, 2 questions. First question is, where are you not requesting in your life? And I'll unpack this. See, for every question that we don't ask, the answer is always no. Think about that for a moment. For every question that we don't ask, the answer is always no. When we make a request of another human being, they'll do one of 3 things. They'll accept the request, they'll decline the request, or they'll counteroffer the request. So as self-evaluation and self-awareness is take an awareness check of, okay, where am I not requesting in my life? And what I invite people to do, and I'm making a request to all your listeners, is I want you to write down a list on a piece of paper or in your journal, or your mobile phone, 50, start at number 50 and count down number 1, 50 areas of your life that you are not making requests, powerful requests, bold requests, outrageous requests, unreasonable requests. It could be with your boss. You've been working at your place of employment for 10 years. You haven't asked for a raise. You haven't asked for a different parking stall. You haven't asked for some different benefits. You haven't asked for a promotion. You haven't asked for more time off. Make a bold or an outrageous request. Maybe you want to go on a date night and you have a financially tough budget right now, but you've got family members or friends or neighbors that you trust that you could go make a bold request of them to look after your children for a few hours so you could take your partner out on a date night for a couple hours and go someplace. Maybe you're traveling and you're going to go to a hotel, and you're in a hotel and you walk into the front desk of the hotel and you make a powerful request for a complimentary upgrade, not free, but a complimentary upgrade. Maybe you're in a restaurant and the server comes by, him or her, and they say, are you ready for some dessert? And you say, yeah, I'm just curious. What would it take to receive a complimentary dessert? Because you see, if you complain in restaurants, sometimes they'll take money off your food bill or they'll give you a complimentary dessert. Because what gets rewarded gets repeated. So why reward negative behavior? Why not reward positive behavior? Because it was social media today, man, if I got a free dessert, I'd take a picture of it, put it on my social media channels and promote that restaurant, promote that establishment, that business. So question number one is, where am I not requesting in my life? And question number two is, who do I become when I don't request? Who do I become as a human being? Like, if you just take a look at yourself in terms of self-evaluation, who do you become as a human being when you don't make requests? I'll give you some examples. Lack and scarcity. You come from a total lack and scarcity mindset. You contract rather than expand as a human being. You're playing really, really small in your life. You're not making a difference. You're ripping your family off. You're ripping your community off. You're not in service. You're not playing a big game out there. You're not making a huge contribution to your church or to your community or to things that you are passionately caused about in your life, that things that matter to you, right? Another thing is, who do you become when you don't make requests? You become stingy. You're not generous. You see, there's so many people out there. There's 7+ billion people on this planet. People are waiting to want to make a difference, wanting to contribute in your life. Even yourself, like as an example, say, hey man, I have this podcast. I'm interviewing some great people around the world from all different walks of humanity. I want to reach millions of people globally. I'm not going to make a bold request for my listeners to share this with people that matter to them in their lives. That's putting yourself out there. And the key thing is I look at my life, and if that lady, Sue Urquhart, back in 1995, if she wouldn't have said to me, I want you to step up in this Toastmasters club. I want you to start to go volunteer and speak at Rotary clubs and women in business and Chamber of Commerce groups and different nonprofit groups. I would have played small. I don't know if I would have been alive today. I know I wouldn't have reached and trained over 1 million people through my corporate training business. I know I wouldn't have been doing all the projects and the humanitarian fun things I'm doing today. That one woman believed more in me than I believed in myself. And as a result of that, she's created a global ripple of impact. And I want this conversation today to transform the human spirit of people's lives, because most people on this planet are playing way too small in their lives. They sell out to their children. They're modeling to their children to play small. I want you as a mother, father, to play big so you can show your children that they can do extraordinary things in their lives, whether it's in the arts, it's in the academia, it's in the sports, it's in business, it's in finance, it's in medicine, whatever it is. Show them they can go for it and have it all. Yeah, they're going to have peaks and valleys. Yeah, they're going to have adversities and challenges and setbacks. That's all part of growth. Go into nature. Nature's always being challenged by support and challenge, right? Same as human beings. We're always going to have support and challenge. We're always going to be hugged and we're always going to be slugged. We're always going to be kissed and we're always going to be kicked. We're always going to be support and challenge. And so the key thing is that really look at who am I as a human being in terms of my self-awareness, is where am I not requesting in my life? And who do I become when I don't make requests? And when you write down a list of 50 people or 50 things where you can start making requests in your professional life, from referrals to endorsements to open doors to going on dates to prospective business people to all kinds of things. I could take my flip chart behind me and I could write out hundreds of things in about 10 minutes of areas of things that you could do to make requests in your life. Why? Because I've done this for so many years on airplanes where I'm constantly self-evaluating myself to play a bigger game in my life.
And at the end of the day, everything is easy, right? as I mentioned on the beginning of when you started to talk about the journey and the things that you're working on, and to helping all these people to make an impact, first of all for their personal families and for the communities and for the world, kind of to move the people for the better, because that's where the innovation goes. And part of the people, just like yourself, you pushing all the nations, and again traveling all across the globe. I mean, you impacting all these people, which I'm sure they're helping the communities, the people around them, and that's how you go further, that's how you go faster.
We're just a network of conversations.
Exactly. But,
because it goes back to when people say to me, they go, I meet all kinds of business people and self-employed entrepreneur people all the time. And they go like, like they're selling, I'll use this as an example, this is a water bottle, but they're like, I want to get my widget out there. I want to get my product. I say, great. How many people did you talk to? Because if you start measuring and tracking, when I was telemarketing, we had to make 400 cold calls a day. Everything was measured and tracked, right? You want to have a better relationship? At the end of the day, score yourself on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 being you really sucked. 5 means you were out of the park, you've crushed it. And do a self-evaluation of how you were. How were you in your physical health today? How were you in your energy levels? How were you in making a difference in terms of contribution? Start to self-evaluate. It's not always easy when you look at yourself thinking, man, you want me to evaluate my relationship? Yeah. If I asked your children, is dad present? Is dad available? Does dad listen to you? What would your kids score on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest number? You see, when we start to take inventory and keep a scoreboard of our life, of self-evaluation builds self-confidence, builds self-worth. Because here's something that most people don't understand on the planet. Success is not something that you and I go out and pursue in the world. Success is something we attract into our life by the person that we become. I always ask people, when a leader walks into a room, what shows up? Just think about this. When a leader walks into a room, when a leader comes onto a Zoom video conferencing call and there's 100 people on a call, when a leader comes onto the Zoom call, when a leader walks into a room, what shows up? People look and they sit up there straight, they stop what they're doing. See, what shows up is a leader. That man or woman's presence, their focus, their commitment, their accountability, their responsibility, their integrity shows up. What do people do when a leader shows up? They turn to follow the leader. So I always share with people, when you walk into a room and you're going to meet a bunch of investors for your startup company, you're going to a trade show or a conference or a workshop or a seminar or a church service. When you walk into the room, do you walk in like, oh, I don't believe in myself? Well, guess what? You don't believe in you? Nobody's going to follow you and believe in you. I used to do that. I used to walk into a room with my head down, talk really monotone. And guess what? People just got away from me. I wasn't aware of it. And so the thing is self-evaluation is when you walk into a room, who shows up, right? If you want to be a wealthy businessman or woman, if you want to be a millionaire, as an example, then you show up. If you want to be that Ironman runner, you want to be that supervisor, that manager, you want to be that CEO. When you walk in the room, does the CEO stand proud and tall, him or her? Do they make eye contact? Do they have a nice firm handshake? Do they say please and thank you? Do they call people by their first names? Are they respectful? Do they have a good character? These are all the little things that make such a big difference in people's lives.
Yeah. So if you don't mind kind of going us to the kind of the basic stuff, which is, that's where the mastery is. Because, personally, if you master the basics, whatever that might be, fitness, business, you're gonna become a master, but you need to master the basics. It's one of the parts that you cannot skip. And part of that mastering the basics is time management, or creating the time. And, maybe you can talk about the kind of work-life business balance. Does it even exist?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's never a shortage of time, only a confusion of priorities. There's never a shortage of time. Every human being on the planet has 24 hours in a day. But most people major in minor things. So there's never a confusion. There's never a shortage of time, only confusion of priorities. And the key thing is, for most people, they're not intimate with their calendars. They're not related to their calendars. And so if you look at high performance men and women, whether it's in sports, it's in business, it's in finance, pick an area, these men and women have a high level of accountability to their calendars. Successful people spend money to save time. Unsuccessful people waste time to save money. See, I'm always looking at, how do I leverage time? How can I hire people? How can I automate, systemate, eliminate things in my life so I can do more what I enjoy to do in my life, right? And so the key thing is when people say I have no time, no, it's not that you don't have any time. It's that what's a priority to you? Like people say to me, well, I have to go to work. No, you choose to go to work. You don't have to go to work. You can sit at home and have the government take care of you if you want to. You don't have to. It's by choice. People always ask me, they go, what time do you go to bed at night? I say, I go to bed when I'm tired. They go, what time do you wake up? I said, when I'm done sleeping. They go, how do you do that? I said, consistently. People say, well, that's arrogant. No, it's not being arrogant. It's designing your life. It's sitting down, putting time in your calendar called thinking time. I plan it out a few times each week. I plan about 3 to 5 hours a week of just thinking time, where I just think. I go for a hike. I go for a walk. I just think about things. I write things down in my journal. I watch YouTube videos or TED Talks, or I'm reading different books, or I'm just thinking, just contemplating things, or I'm having a conversation with a mentor or an elderly person to learn about wisdom from their years of experience. And so these things are so important. So what people need to discover for themselves is, what do they really, 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 really want in their life? Because behavior never lies. See, I don't listen to what people say. I watch what they do. I watch their feet, not their lips, because behavior never lies. And all I have to do is somebody says to me, I want to do this in my life. Like if you look at my personal promises to myself, my personal promises are linked to my weekly sheet, which are linked to my calendar, which are linked to my monthly, quarterly, 6-month, and yearly targets. Everything is linked. Everything is tracked and measured. It's specific, it's measurable, and it's actionable. At the end of each week, every Sunday, we do an evaluation, Tatiana and I, and we go through, am I effective or ineffective? Each week, am I effective or ineffective? And we play these games. And that's what we do. And that's what people, when people say, well, I want to make more money. Well, understand that rich people don't work for money. The poor and the middle class work for money. See, that's such a misconception that a lot of organizations out there, financial institutions, program you, and the media programs you to get you to understand wealthy people, affluent, rich people do not work for money. They work to acquire income producing assets. And then their income producing assets produce passive cash flow that's monthly recurring. And that cash flow then pays for your lifestyle. Doesn't happen overnight. Takes a few years to get it set up. I always share with people, I said, if you're focused and disciplined, give yourself 2 years, you could turn the corner and turn your finances around. But you gotta give yourself at least 2 years of being focused and self-disciplined and accountable and responsible.
Got it.
But that's the thing, is that most people, they don't even know what their personal financial net worth statement is. And that's their report card. When they're in school, they focus on their report card. But when they get out in life, they don't focus on their financial net worth, which is their report card.
Yeah, the question that I wanted to ask you again, I don't know what is your personal opinion on that, but some of the people in the media, where when it comes to the business people, they kind of talk about, entrepreneurial type of spirit or a gene. Some people say it's inherited, or some people say you can become a business owner. So what is your take on that? And if you believe you can become a business owner, what will be kind of the key traits that somebody will look to acquire?
Sure. Well, I'm a terrible employee. I get fired the first day. I'm a terrible employee. Right? Terrible employee. I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like following other people's directions. I'm a terrible employee. So the key thing is you got to ask yourself is that, like, people always ask me, they go, you mentioned about balance. If you want life balance, go work for the government. It's the bottom line. As an entrepreneur, I work 12 to 14 hours. I don't have to. I love what I do. I have a lot of investments, active and passive investments. I don't have to work. I work by choice because I want to serve humanity and make a difference. But the thing is, I put in 12 to 14 hours a day, but I love what I do. To me, work is like getting on a roof, right? That's work, or physical labor. I'm not good. I don't own any tools in my home. I don't have a tool. I hire people to do that because I don't even own a screwdriver. I'm not that guy. When Ted and I first started dating, I said, listen, I don't know how to cook. I'm not that guy. If you want a guy to cook, I'm the wrong guy to date. If you want a guy that's good at making reservations or can order food or hire a chef, I'm that guy. And I just put my terms on the table. And so people need to understand is that all we are is a network of conversations. A lot of people will say, I'm not a businessman. I'm not an entrepreneur. Guess what? Go back to your childhood. Did you ever were you ever in Boy Scouts or Girl Guides where you went and knocked on doors and sold Girl Scout or Girl Guide cookies? Did you ever have a lemonade stand as a kid? You see, people that want more freedom, when we trade time for money called linear income, right? I'll give you statistics in North America on this continent. In the United States of America and Canada right now, 78% of the North American population live paycheck to paycheck. The average North American only has access to about $400 liquid. That's it. That's the statistics. People can research that to verify that. And the thing is, when we get present to that most people don't even have 3 months of an emergency fund of liquid cash, right? Because people are not intimate with that. And so the thing is that people want to discover for themselves is that if you want to become a business person, I don't have any formal education. I just hire smart people. Like when I was going to school, I knew I'd never go to college or university. Again, no disrespect to people who go to college, university. But what people always ask me, because I speak at a lot of college universities around the world, and this gets really kind of, we like, people get excited when I speak, because I'm very practical and I'm very results oriented. And I always show people, I said, listen, would you rather go to university and get a nice degree, pick any university or college in the world, and go into debt, thousands of dollars or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or take that same money and hire a mentor or coach of somebody that you researched around the world, that you respect and admire him or her, and they live your lifestyle that you want to create in the next 5 to 10 years. And you could go and apprentice with that person. Listen, I'm going to get a degree from Harvard University, as an example. It's going to cost me whatever, a couple $100,000 over 4 or 5 years. You could go take some of that money and hire a mentor, hire a coach who's already living the lifestyle, who's already got the blueprint that you want. And that person would fast track you. Not only that, the people that you would probably meet in the inner circle over the next few years of apprenticing with that person would skyrocket you. I have in my phone here, where's my cell phone? My cell phone's right here. I have 48,000 people on my cell phone. I have 48,000 people. It's taken me about 30 years to build that many contacts, but I have 48,000 contacts on my phone.
There's a lot of people saying now, you better make sure you don't lose the phone.
Yeah, well, I have it backed. I have contingency plans and backups. Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's well protected, and passwords, all that stuff. I have protected. It's a huge asset, right? Because that's where some of my wealth is stored, is my connections, my relationship equity. But I always encourage people, people want to get into different businesses. I'm like, great. You want to get into a network marketing? I say, great. Do you know at least 1,000 people? No, I got 130 people in my contact. Okay, good. You're going to have to go out there and meet and greet a lot of people and overcome a lot of rejection. So for a lot of people, the thing is, are you willing to endure a lot of rejection, getting uncomfortable, going through adversities and failures and challenges, having peaks and valleys? I was once homeless. I once lived on welfare. I used to, when I was doing in the early days in the 1990s, building my corporate training business, I was 3 to 4 to 5 months behind on my phone bills some months and on my rent payments, because I had to fund my business, because I didn't have anybody helping me out. I was all on my own. I had to hustle and I had to grind. So for the first 10 years of my corporate training and professional speaking career, I wore the same high school suit. I wore the same suit every day, traveling around the world for the first 10 years. I didn't have a financial budget because I was putting all my money into my business. So I wore the same suit that my parents bought me for high school graduation. I bought different shirts and ties and socks and shoes and underwear, but I wore the same suit. I had one suit. That's all I had. And so I was very conservative because I was on a very tight financial budget. That's why I'm really good with money management now. That's why I'm really good in my life to multiply money, right? Why people love being around me in terms of financial investors, because I'm really good at multiplying money. Why? Because I was once homeless on welfare. I invested in a startup business and the business didn't work out. I was the co-signer, signed all the lines of credit, all the loans. And what happened was, the bank came after the people and I was a co-signer. I ended up going homeless on the streets, living on welfare. And I couldn't cash my welfare check at the bank because the bank was suing me. So I had to go to a local money mart, payday loan place, to cash my check. And I end up living here in Canada on less than $2 Canadian a day. So I go to a 7-Eleven convenience store and get a hot dog and a super big gulp. And that's what I lived on for $1.69 for a few months. So I learned that when I had that $2 a day to live on as a budget, that I didn't have any more money. I had to think, okay, how can I take that $2 when I get some Halloween candy, or I find some old tires and I can go sell the tires at an auction. When I get that money, that seed money for me, can I multiply that money? See, there's 3 types of wealth building. Number 1 is to earn or make money. Step number 1, which people can do around the world. We can earn or make money. Step number 2 is harder, which is how do you protect the money and keep it safe? So when you get paid every paycheck, you're not going to the Costco and the grocery store and the movie theater and paying your cell phone bill and putting gasoline in your tank, right? How do you protect it and keep it safe? Third step is, how do you multiply money? So how do you make it? How do you earn it? How do you protect it, keep it safe? And then how do you multiply? This is stuff that's never taught. I meet many wealth managers and top financial planners and financial advisors, and I asked them, I said, how do you multiply money? Put it in the stock market, buy cryptocurrency. I said, really? So you believe in speculating all the time? And they're like, well, yeah, that's how you got to do. So you believe in gambling or speculating? I said, how do you, if I give you $20 US dollars right now, how do you turn it into $50 or $100? Right? See, people don't teach that. And that's where you learn, by getting around different mentors and different coaches and people who've got the experience and the results, because they'll teach you these things. How do you create generational wealth? With our foundation right now, with Link Foundation, we're having conversations on how to create a 250-year legacy beyond our life. 3 generations, 250 years. And how we create that master plan, to unfold that master plan, so that when we die, how does that legacy live on 3 generations, 250 years without us? This is playing to begin. This is starting to expand the mindset and getting around different people thinking, wow, you know, I can go, because I used to live not paycheck to paycheck. I used to live hour to hour. I know what it's like to be completely financially flat broke, being 5 months behind on my rent, many years behind on my taxes, and having an R9 credit score, which is the worst credit score you can get in Canada as a citizen. I had an R9. And now I have phenomenal with what I'm doing. I get an A+ in finances, because it turns around, because I'm like, okay, I don't want to live my life that way anymore, because nobody's coming to rescue me. And that's the thing, is right now with this global pandemic, there's a lot of people out there around the world that are waiting for somebody, whether it's a church, it's a government, it's a relative, it's a family member, it's some employer, it's somebody on social media, one of your friends, that's coming to rescue you. When you realize that nobody is coming to rescue you but yourself, your life will start to change.
That is beautiful. So, I mean, so many different things and takeaways that a lot of people will take from this interview, but I still want to ask you so many different questions, and I'm sure, I don't know if the time is going to be there, you know, for that. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, again, you helped a real estate business to go public in a NASDAQ, to ring a bell, and you rang that twice. So, and part of that, of course, when you take everything apart from that, you know, fancy, beautiful thing, which is ringing a bell and company and people, there is one thing that is involved, it's revenue, which comes down to the sales. Yeah. So can you talk about that? You know, is sales that something, you know, that people should be looking forward to, you know, to learn, and how important is that for you personally?
Yeah. So key thing about sales, good question to ask, is I don't sell people. So a lot of people, I'll give you if I can share a quick story. So a number of years ago, I was raising money for a startup company I was involved in. And I was traveling across North America, going to meet high net worth and ultra high net worth and accredited investors. And I was staying at this Holiday Inn hotel one time, and because it was a cheap hotel, it's all I had with a budget, and it had free continental breakfast. And so I was lining up these different investors to come meet me at the Holiday Inn, and I snuck them in, totally out of integrity. I learned my lesson, and I would bring them into the hotel to have a continental breakfast, okay? Because I didn't have any money to hire a taxi or a rental car to go meet them and drive around the city to go find them. Didn't have any money for that. So I wanted to have them on site. So what happened was, a guy showed up one day, a high net worth investor, shows up at the Holiday Inn, sits down with me. I automatically start pitching and selling him on why he should invest $500,000 US into this startup company. And the guy looks at me and he said, Darren, can you just shut up? He said, can you just shut up? And I'm like, what? He goes, you need to stop talking. He goes, you need to learn some things. He goes, I'm sharing this with you because I used to be you. My younger self, I'm talking to my younger self here, like 30 years ago. And he goes, stop pitching and selling successful men and women. You turn people off. I can't wait to run out the door and never see you ever again. He goes, but I believe in you because I see there's potential in you. He goes, stop pitching and selling and start educating and informing people by listening and asking questions. Prescription before diagnosis is called malpractice in the medical industry. You are prescribing before you're diagnosing. You're telling me what product or service or what I need to invest in before you even listened and asked questions, what my risk tolerance level is, how I do asset allocation, when I invest in. So when I share with people about sales, is a lot of people, I'll give you an example on social media, like yourself. I get people frequently who will hit me up on social media. They'll friend request me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and then boom, right to my inbox, they're pitching me on their product or their service or their business opportunity. Yeah. And I just delete because it's transactional rather than relational. There's no relationship equity. And so one of the things to look at in terms of self-evaluation with people is, are you transactional or are you relational? Are you pitching and selling, or are you educating and informing? I had a lady the other day said to me, oh my gosh, you got to join this network marketing company I'm involved with, this health product company. You got to sign up your friends. You got to buy this product and be on the shop. Like, you don't even know if I'm allergic to your product. You don't know nothing about me, and you're trying to sell me on something before you've even listened and asked me questions. When I'm around people, I don't ever pitch and sell. I just educate, inform, I listen and ask a lot of questions. And by listening and asking a lot of questions and getting related to people and building relationship equity, people get to know you and like you and trust you. Because it comes down to two big things also: trust and agreement. For people that are in business, I get calls. I get people that email me. They go, oh my gosh, Darren, my biggest client just sent us a notice. They're pulling away from our firm. Yeah, because there's broken trust and there's broken agreement. Go back, retrace your steps, and look at your promises, what you promised to that firm, that company, that client, that customer. Go back and retrace your steps and look at where trust and agreement were broken, and restore the integrity on the trust in the agreement. Because it will go back to two things: trust and agreement. Where did trust get broken, and where did you not follow through on what you gave your word to in terms of your agreements?
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean,
same thing with marriages, same thing with relationships, trust and agreements. Yeah. My business partner wants to break up with me. My spouse wants to leave me. Trust and agreement.
Yeah, yeah. Still, I want to ask so many questions. Oh my God! Like you're putting all these information away, which is phenomenal. Again, that you're providing, the time, first of all, to be on the podcast, and you're willing to share this information, which is like, where are you going to put it? That's why you became who you are, because you want to help other people to become who they are at the same time, which is beautiful. But I would love to talk about, again, the cause of, one of the kind of wealth people part of, when it comes to the mindset, is to give back. And of course, that's something probably that everybody should do in the beginning stages. If you're not wealthy, if you're broke, you should be giving away something, at least maybe your time, for somebody. But can you talk about, again, with the LY2NK Foundation, what you're looking to do with that, in the coming year or two?
Yeah, great thing. You bet. So the secret to living is giving. It's about being a go-giver, not a go-getter. The best time to give is when you actually have nothing. People say, what do you mean? So I'll give you an example. I used to live in a one-bedroom apartment, small little apartment. Like everything was in one room, like my kitchen, my bathroom, my shower, everything was in one room. Like you couldn't put 10 people in there. It was so small. And, and when I had absolutely nothing, I would look at every few months what clothes, or if we were changing seasons in Canada, 4 seasons, I would look at what clothes do I not need to wear anymore? How can I repurpose the clothes and give them to the Salvation Army or Goodwill or someplace? And how can I pay it forward and pass it on? So one of the biggest things to look at in our lives, the secret to living is giving, is find ways that you can repurpose things and pay it forward and pass it on. Create new space for new opportunities. And what you'll find is that when you go out there and start being a go-giver, not a go-getter, right? Because we've all been to these trade shows where we go there and people have commission breath, and you can just tell they're trying to hustle us and pitch and sell us because they want to earn a commission, right? And they don't care about us. It's strictly transactional versus relational. So the key thing to look at is that when it comes to giving, start in your own home, right? It could be your children's clothes, children's toys. It could be your personal clothes, things that you don't need in your garage, your attic. Pay it forward and give it away to somebody. What we did with Link Foundation is as I've traveled around the world and been to first and second, third world countries, what I discovered was really the difference to make a difference in people's lives. And I get a dopamine fix. I'm selfish. I get a dopamine fix by helping people. I feel really good. It changes the biochemicals in my body. And so I love to do that. I get that high off of giving to people and making a difference. And so what we did with Link Foundation is we created this foundation here in Canada back in 2019, Tatiana and I. My partner in life was a high school educator for 35 years. She got 3 academic degrees. She's bilingual in French and English language. When she was in the public school system, she was just an employee ID number, right? She made a difference, but she didn't really make a difference because there was never anywhere to measure it. So I thought, what if we could do really, really good where we could build some very successful businesses and be passive investors in our business, where we could play a game between the year 2020 and 2030 and bring in different volunteers from all walks of humanity and play a game in the world where we can contribute with a commitment to raising $100 million US, right? Specific, it's measurable. $100 million US over the course of a 10-year decade, right? Over a 10-year period, where we could actually go out there and on our website, link.org, which we call it Link, it's LY2NK, which stands for Leaders Yielding to New Knowledge. And LY2NK stands for Link Foundation. But what we're committed to doing is transforming the human spirit through global philanthropy, not relying on governments, not relying on different things, but really supporting different causes that can make a ripple of impact in humanity. And so the information is on link.org website. If people want to do a little deeper dive of research on there, it's all kind of unfolds the whole plan of what we're going to do. But I feel inspired by doing that and going to do humanitarian trips and spending time and building community and collaborating and sharing ideas through a collective intelligence. That's really what it's about, is a network of conversations and building community and relationships with people and having a lot of fun and having a lot of joy and a celebration with people while we're making a contribution on the planet. And anybody can be in service and be a humanitarian. Anybody. It doesn't matter where you start, at what age. When I was a little kid at 7 years of age, with my little rent-a-kid business, I was doing things in my community through bottle drives and different things I was doing to help out local little nonprofit organizations or the food bank, right? So it just starts in your own home. Look around your home and say, what can I repurpose? What can I give away? Maybe even starting with a smile, open the door for somebody, saying please and thank you. Little things that make such a big difference, but that starts the journey of being a humanitarian or being a philanthropist. And if people want to learn more, we're doing philanthropy, real estate investing in the United States of America. I earn double-digit returns passively with monthly passive cash flow. We help out families through single-family homes. We're not property managers. We're not real estate investors. We're not landlords. We're strictly passive investors where we help out families to stabilize families in America. But we're in nice double-digit returns. We help make a difference. People can reach out and connect with me, and we can give you information on that. But find an area to really be in service and make a contribution to people's lives, because the secret to living is giving.
Here you go. Here you go. That's the answer to everything, right? Especially during these times. So again, one of the things that I wanted to mention is, again, first of all, really appreciate you being today on the show, because so much, again, the wealth of knowledge, the information, the strategies, the tips for everything, how to change the life, the mindset, time management. I mean, there's a lot of different things. And personally, you accomplished, a lot. So I'm just looking back again to the bio, 25 years, 4 continents, more than over 1 million people impacted in over 50 countries. And again, coming back to the NASDAQ, ringing the bell, and I'm sure more of these, ceremonies will happen in the future. But if you don't mind me asking, because you kind of ask that question to the audience, personally yourself. So I think it will be good to kind of ask you, even though you accomplished so much, is like, who do you want to become?
Who do I become? I want to become a better version of myself. A man of character and integrity. Without integrity, nothing works. There's no workability. So I am every day thriving to always level up my integrity, because the bigger the game that you play in your life, personally, professionally, the more you're in and out of integrity, because you're juggling a lot more balls in the air, right? And so I'm constantly working on my integrity, my health and fitness, my spirituality, my relationship. And also, too, is my freedom and ease. I made a decision a couple of years ago. I wanted to live an emergency-free life, because I was always reactive to everything. Text message would come in, an email, a phone call. I was reacting. One day I made a decision. I thought, you know what? I want to make a decision right now to start to live an emergency-free life. I'm not going to react. I'm going to respond, and I'm going to do it with freedom and ease. And so who I want to become in my life is a person that I'm grateful, because my mom spent many years working in palliative care of a hospital here in Canada. And I learned a lot about gratitude, but really counting our blessings every day. And people always ask me, what are you most grateful for in your life? first of all, is to take my next breath. Because as I take my next breath, somebody takes their last breath. So I'm very present with that. I'm also present that there's no guarantee that you or I are going to go to bed tomorrow night. So it's living in the now. It's being here in this present moment, right here, right now. And that's what's important is being in the moment as a human being, being here in the present, dancing in this conversation, because that's where we're at right now. There's no guarantee we're going to go to bed tomorrow night. So it's every day looking at things. So for example, this morning I was on a call just before doing this interview where with my mother and my father. My parents are both divorced, both remarried, but I'm creating this project now. I'm going to have a conversation with my brother and my sister this week where I want to enroll my brother and my sister into interviewing both my mother and my father on Zoom video conferencing. We're going to record it with permission. And I want to interview my mother and my father with the help of my siblings. And we want to learn about the backstory and the upbringing of my mother and my father. What was life like for them? And what are some stories they've never shared with us and told us? Because I want to capture that as part of a legacy. And so, Titi and I have no children, but I have nieces and nephews. And so they get to learn about grandparents, what it was like. And so, it's way out of my comfort zone. Way out of my comfort zone. It's scary for me. I'm excited, but I'm really scared because it's really taken my vulnerability and my emotions to a whole new level. But I'm throwing my hat over the fence. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it because fear doesn't live in action. And I'm going to take this on as something I want to do in my life. So I'm pulling it towards me versus running away from it and listening to because my self-talk says, don't do it, Darren. It's unsafe. It's scary. Don't take the risk. That's just my brain protecting me and keeping me safe. But my heart says, do it for the family. Do it for myself. Do it for the next generation. Do it to build connection and more deeper connection with my mother and my father. So I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I'm going to come from an open heart. I'm going to come from listening and understanding and just creating the safe space for my family to come together and authentically and vulnerably share what's ever on their heart, where they want to share, and capture that and record it and maybe get it transcribed. And who knows what we'll do with it? It'd be a coffee table book down the road. I don't know where it's going to end up. That's a collaboration within the family. But take on something in your life that would scare you. I went rock climbing last week, indoor rock climbing, terrified. Went up 40 feet, didn't know how to get off the rock, was terrified, couldn't come back down. And the guy said, well, just let go of the rock and the belay machine will drop. Well, man, I'm totally in control here and I got to let go. I was so scared. So after about a half an hour of him coaching me to get me off the ledge, I finally let go. I tell you, man, that was a scary experience. So I said to myself yesterday, I'm going to go rock climbing again. I put it into my calendar. I'm going here in a couple of weeks with a couple of friends of mine. I'm going to do it again to overcome that fear of rock climbing, to keep breaking through that pattern. So always pushing myself. Some people watching like rock climbing, Darren, come on, it's easy. To me, it was scary.
Here you go. So again, that's probably the answer to kind of a lot of problems or difficulties or challenges that a lot of people have. Instead of listening to your brain, if you listen to your heart a little bit more, that will get you through, the uncomfortable and the things that you don't want to do. So this is phenomenal. Again, like this man is definitely a go-giver, and there's definitely not going to be a comment down below saying otherwise, because I mean, the wealth of knowledge, the information that you provided today is going to benefit tremendously all the people, I'm sure, who are going to be watching this episode. And for the guys or girls who are watching this episode, one thing that I wanted to ask you, if you share this episode with a friend of yours who is looking for those pieces of inspiration, strategy, tips on, time management, business, personal development, make sure to pass this interview along because it will benefit tremendously that person. So Darren, it's been a great time talking with you today. I really appreciate it.
Grateful to be here.
Thank you. So again, guys, thank you for watching this episode. Make sure to pass this along to a friend of yours. And as always, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.